About programming. It will offer versatile
Okay, good evening, everyone. I think we're about to get started. My name is Matt Fernellis. I'm the town manager here in Reading. Before we get started, a couple of things. First of all, people probably noticed the sign on the way in. The elevators are out tonight. We're going to work hard to get those fixed, hopefully tomorrow. But again, we're in an old building, as everybody knows. So that's par for the course, unfortunately. The other thing is, if there are any boards that need to call themselves to order, now would be the time to do it. I think maybe Permanent Building Committee and Council on Aging were posted for tonight. So.
Okay, we're okay.
Permanent Building Committee online at all? Anybody? No? Okay, good. So I don't see her. So I don't think we have to call anybody to order. So if you can go to the first slide, Jenna. Great. So this is, I think this is I can't even keep track anymore. I mean, it might be the third forum we've had so far. We've covered a lot in the two other forums. Tonight, we're going to talk again about the background and development of the project, the facility overview and the use, the design project and budget development. Project cost and tax implications is a big part of this, and something we'll really focus on a lot tonight. And project approval process and engagement. And then, as always, the most fruitful part of these meetings that I found is to have your questions and develop answers to them and hear your concerns, if any, about the project. So we really look forward to some question and answers at the end of the meeting tonight. So I just wanted to kick it off. Welcome everybody here back again. Feel free. I think tonight we do have a microphone and a podium. So when there is questions and answers, people could come up and ask those. And we are broadcasting on Zoom tonight as well. So that's why we want to have people speak into the mic so the people at home can hear, and people on Zoom can also ask questions as well. So with that, I think I am done my portion for now, and then I will pass it over to Mark Doxer. Yes.
Before you pass it over, I just want to call the permanent building committee and recount the building committee meeting to order. So we do have a quorum. Take attendance, Mark Doxer. Here. John Coote. Here. Nancy Zimlack.
Here.
Pat Tompkins here.
Thanks all. So I have a tendency, I prefer to walk and talk. So I think that may be what I do, if that's okay. So I'm Mark Doxer. I am currently on the select board, obviously a longtime resident of the community. And for the last 6 years or so, this has been a real priority on my list in terms of moving this ahead. And I want to give you, kind of share with you the history of kind of how this came about, where it came from. So it actually goes back 10 years, where some studies were done initially, done by the MAPC, an economic development plan, that talked about the need for more facilities and more programming for the 60 plus population in the community. This was followed up in 2017. We hired UMass and the Gerontology Institute, and they came back with a whole series of recommendations, some of which we could implement because we could do things here at the Pleasant Street Center, but others were just beyond its capacity. You can't do it. You can see what's happening here even tonight with this crowd. We're already kind of tight. There just aren't the facilities to do the things that are needed. This went on. So we go to 2021, the select board got together and formed a committee called ReCalc, the Reading Center for Active Living Committee. And the purpose was to better understand the needs of the community as it relates largely to the 60-plus-year-old population. So rather than saying seniors and defining exactly what that means, there are a lot of folks in this community. In fact, at this point, it's almost 30% of this community that's age 60 or more. And that population and that percentage has been growing, not just in Reading. This is a trend that's happening nationally. So all this becomes very important. That committee is formed. Another study was done by UMass and talks a lot more about, again, both programs and space as things that are missing. We take that forward, 2022, the select board decided that they would take some of the ARPA funds that we were allocated and invest that into what's happening in the community specifically for the 60+ population. So they funded a feasibility study. We hired a group called BH+A, and I think you may be hearing from the principal from BH+A tonight, to do this feasibility study to, again, better understand what these needs are and how we're going to take them forward. So we go forward from there. We go to 2023. Recommendations come forward. The feasibility study is completed. And as we'll talk about in just a moment, it took a look at what are the needs. It took a look at different locations. It took a look at how can we best serve the needs of the community. In 2023, that report comes forward and the select board asked that we do a few other things also. We look into some other needs that are going to be part of that. For example, transportation, and talking about even if there are different financial activities that we could do to be more helpful. So that all is happening in 2023. We come forward to 2024. And as you'll see in a moment, after looking at the various places, Simon's Way, right across from the ice arena, is an area that the town owns, purchased it several years ago. And that was deemed the best place to do this. We looked downtown. We looked at all of the open space in Reading, which I say a little bit with a smile because there's not a lot of open space in Reading. But we looked at all those options to see what would be the best. And Simon's Way, as you'll hear, was unanimously taken forward. So 2024, it goes to the, just one more second, it goes to the Permanent Building Committee. Give me 1 second, I get the message. 2024, do this all the time. 2024, both the Recalc Council on Aging support going to Simon's Way, as you'll see, the Select Board, Permanent Building Committee do as well. And then here we are in 2025. We're looking at drawings of the building. We're talking about the costs. We're talking about going to town meeting in early May, and then a vote to the community to take place on May 13th. Okay, now please. So why? What's going on? So this is a need, not a want, not just a want. It's very much a need in terms of what's going on. You saw the background of what's going on. The population, it's just over, I think it's about 29%, so 28.6% end of 2024, is age 60+ in our community. It's a very large contingent of folks. The space has many constraints. The need is for the space to be more accessible and to allow us to do more things in that space. Next one, please. So if you have been to this center before, if you were participating in activities, you're aware of many of the shortcomings and limitations of what we're able to do here. You can see some of the things that are brought up. There's not enough space. It's not usable enough. And the one large space that is usable obviously can do one activity at a time. We can't do all the programming that we'd like to do. We can't service the size of the people that we'd like to do. We have events with wait lists. We're not able to do big activities. There isn't a large space. We have to go to outside spaces to do it. Wonderful building, not able to meet the needs of what we have and what we need. Next, please. In 2022, a community survey was done as part of the work for Recalc. And there are a few things that are probably worth pointing out in terms of what's happening. We talked to people and asked, what would you like to see? We asked them, what would you use? Where would you like it to be? How much would you be willing to pay? Not a scientifically done survey, not how folks who would do this would set it up specifically. However, we did get 1,472 responses. And some of the things to point out, I think, are really, really interesting here. You can see the breakdown by age, and you can see where people would prefer just a location for age 60+ solo. And also where people responded that they'd be interested in preference for the age 60+ and opportunities for other parts of the community to participate in that center. More focused on a senior-focused community center. So what you can see specifically, if you look at the light blue, this is an all-ages community center, including designated space and programming for residents age 60+. And you can see, if you look at the all ages piece, 49% preferred that. If you look as the kind of the ages start to go up, the preference moves a bit more toward a seniors only center. But there's a substantial group that's talking about the ability to focus on age 60+ and have those resources available to the broader community also. On the right-hand side was talking about where do people want the location to be. In fact, we explored the old Walgreens, now Dollar store that's over there as a space to use. That wasn't something that we were able to make happen for a variety of reasons. That might have been a great downtown solution, but it's not available. So we took that, we looked at this no preference. We talked about this supporting of an all ages community center. Again, age 60 plus as the priority. Next slide, please. So one more on here, just thinking about, you can take a look at on the left-hand side, the preference in terms of what's the likelihood people would use the center based on their age. And again, you can see 76% said an all ages community center with designated space, 76%, senior center for residents age 60 plus, 78%. So strong interest in using it from 1,472 respondents. On the right-hand side is taking a look at a question that was asked back in 2022. How much money would you be willing to pay for a center like this? Highlights from this, 59% said somewhere between $100 and $200 or more. And 30% said $200 and up. So this is back now, I guess, 3 years in terms of the activities. But that was just kind of a general number that was thrown out in terms of supporting this activity. Next slide, please.
Mark, there's a forum for the select board now versus online.
Okay.
Versus online.
You want to call us to order, please?
Sure, I'd like to call the select board to order. Karen Herrick present.
Mark Doxer present. Is someone online? Was there one online? Oh, Chris, are you online? Well, he's online. I guess we'll assume he's here. Okay, just a couple more slides because I'm over my time, so let me keep going here. What we did is working with BH+A, this architectural firm, we looked at what we could do at the different locations that we looked at. We looked at a lot of different places. We focused down to these three as the top ones. Right here, the Pleasant Street Center. What else could we do with the building? How could we change it? How could we make it meet our needs? Number two was to look at Oakland Road, basically across from the high school and the Performing Arts Center. So if you were where you turn right into the parking lot, Performing Arts Center on Oakland Road, there are woods on the left side, I guess. So if you could turn to the left, that's what that would be. And then the third was Simon's Way. And you can see here, general layouts were done, again, to make sure we could accommodate the needs at each of these three locations and figure that out. A big site ranking was done by a whole variety of different groups, ranging from the Recalc Committee that I mentioned before, the Permanent Building Committee, the Council on Aging, all went through the same kind of assessment. And the next slide, please. The results of all of these were that the preferred site was Simon's Way. So the Recalc Committee, the Council on Aging, the Permanent Building Committee, BH+A, which is the architectural firm, they did the same set of rankings themselves. And then we actually hired another firm on the outside to kind of take a look at the work that had been done and do their own independent evaluation. And their view here was Simon's Way ranks the highest in terms of value between the three locations. The select board followed that with a 5-0 vote to support using Simon's Way. Next, please. And I think that's where I stop and pass it on to. Have a little bit. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Jenna Wood. I'm the Community Services Director here in Reading. We would like to kick it off with a video that's going to give you an overview of the facility. And then I will talk a little bit about the programming and the different divisions within the department who will be inside of the building.
Have you heard about the new Reading Center for Active Living, or RECAL? It's a new community asset which is meant to create a center of activity and connection for our residents. The proposed site is adjacent to the Burbank Ice Arena on Simon's Way. RECAL is built around its program rooms, thoughtfully crafted to meet the diverse needs of our 60-plus community with dedicated senior hub space, while providing new recreation space and areas dedicated to veterans services. The building opens into a spacious and inviting lobby with information and resources available about programming. It will offer versatile spaces for classes, workshops, and group activities from educational seminars to yoga, all of which will support our 60-plus population for programming, including a lounge and cafe both perfect for relaxation or impromptu gathering with friends, and an adjacent patio expanding space into the outdoors. A maker space equipped with tools and materials for crafting, sewing, robotics, and other hands-on projects. A billiards room on the second floor with an adjacent roof deck overlooking the conservation land. A game room and card room for friendly competition and camaraderie. There are multi-use rooms for larger gatherings and events, enabling multi-generational activities and so much more. A full kitchen, not just for preparing meals, but a center for cooking classes and shared experiences. And finally, the gymnasium and walking track that loops above, supporting the senior community's desire for athletic programming, as well as space for people of all ages and community organizations. The new ReCal will replace the current Pleasant Street Center, while also adding new facilities for the whole community, including recreation and veterans services, all of which will support new programming and provide an incredible new asset to the entire community, offering something for everyone.
Sorry. Okay, so in this building, you'll see 3 different divisions under community services. You'll see Elder and Human Services, led by Chris Kovaleski. You'll see Veteran Services, led by Will Valier, and you'll see Recreation, led by Jim Sullivan. And I'm really proud of this staff. They've all had a tremendous amount of experience in the past with different communities, as well as been very active in the Reading community. And really increased outreach and enrollment the past few years. What's really unique about each of these divisions is that they do service a large amount of the community as a whole. Recreation does serve the elder population. Currently, they serve about an average of 360 plus a year. Veteran Services sees about 400 veterans a year and helps them with different services. And 50% of those veterans are 60 plus. And in Elder and Human Services, we have our caseworker who services the whole entire community. And we have our health nurse who is combined with the town and the Elder and Human Services and oversees the whole community. So what people don't realize is that everyone is always working together in this department and really advocating for every single age group in the community on a day-to-day basis. So here you'll see our vision statement to foster health and wellness by promoting social interaction, strengthening the community, and providing a point of access to programs for all ages. It's an inclusive and welcoming and supportive space that meets the interests and needs of the growing 60 plus population, promoting growth and healthy aging by enhancing the social, cognitive, and physical lives of the senior population while providing indoor recreational space for all of our age groups. And I do encourage you to view our last public forum. It will go more in detail. Every single staff member was here and spoke about the shortcomings of their individual divisions and how this building will really help foster a sense of community and be helpful for each of their individual programs. So an interesting thing that came about when we were doing our research as a team, we were all sharing different articles, and there is a Surgeon General warning, a Surgeon General advisory by Vivek Murthy. And he declared an American epidemic of loneliness and isolation. And this just highlighted the dangers within the community that isolation and loneliness creates. And it can have a significant economic impact on communities. And you'll see here that social isolation among older adults accounts for an estimated $6.7 billion in excess Medicare spending annually. And with other age groups, you'll see a lower academic achievement, worse performance at work. And the connection not only affects individuals, but also the communities that they live in. So he went around the whole entire United States and realized that loneliness and social isolation were not specific to an age group or a gender or anything like that. That everyone was experiencing social anxiety, loneliness, isolation, and could really benefit from these social connections within their community. And this really further solidified what we were doing as a team. So just some really interesting statistics and kind of scary. Social connection is as dangerous as smoking up to 15 cigarettes a day, drinking 6 alcoholic drinks daily, physical inactivity, obesity, and air pollution. And then also in this study, Vivek put 6 pillars to advance social connection. And one of those 6, the number 1 pillar of these 6 pillars is to strengthen the social infrastructure in your local community. So design the built environment to promote social connection, establish and scale community connection programs, and invest in local institutions that bring people together. And that's exactly what ReCal is doing. So this is just an aerial view of the building. You'll see the Reading Center for Active Living. You'll see the pickleball courts as well. Those are a separate project. There's some private funding for those, and that will be also at the town meeting. But when doing this project, the ReCalc team and the staff realized how important that these outdoor recreation areas would play, specifically pickleball, because it is a lot of, there is a lot of 60+ participation in pickleball. You'll also see the walking trail around the pickleball and the Reading Center for Active Living. This was also an important piece that tied the building together, and that walkway is included in the financial figure that you'll see tonight. Other great things about this area, there's an existing ice arena. We have our special skates, adaptive skating program in there through recreation. We have our Reading youth hockey teams that play there, our Reading high school teams that play there. We also have athletic fields in the back. There's a baseball field and there's a multi-purpose field. So we have several youth organizations playing out there as well as high school teams. So this is really a great community resource area that could further bring our community together intergenerationally. So just a little bit about how these spaces will really impact each of the divisions. So right now, Mark was spot on, 28% of the community is seniors. There's 7,887 seniors right now, and our population is 27,448. If you also calculate the 50 to 59 age group, which Chris always says that, different centers all around, they do service starting at 50, sometimes 55. And it's important to also look at that number because those are our upcoming seniors and also something that we can look at as a community if we want to offer some of these programs to 55+. And that accounts for another 13%. So you're looking at a total of 41% from the 50 to 100+ age group. So in talking about this building as well and meeting with the staff, there is such a wide age range in our 60+ population, 60, and then we have people who are 103. So there is various age groups. Chris just threw what?
104.
Oh, 104. I was wrong. That's awesome. That's amazing. So 46% of this age group are ages 60 to 69. So we're seeing an uptick in a younger senior. We have 70 to 79, ages 7 to 79 that are 34%. We have 80 to 89 who account for 16% of the community. And then we have ages 90+ who are 4% of that 60+ community. So of course, there's going to be various interests, abilities in throughout this population. So we know that there are spaces that we were not having here that could really benefit in this building. So you'll just see here on this slide, all of the things that our 60+ community will have access to that they don't have currently in the center. They don't have a designated multi-purpose room. This room is switched over probably like 5 times a day on a busy day. Poor Chris and the custodian are shuffling the tables constantly and the staff. So the ability to accommodate everyone who's on a wait list and increase our programming will be a huge asset to the community. So recreation, they can help create and foster this community connection. They can maximize the use of the building space when it's not being used for the 60+ population and offer recreation programming for other ages. Of course, we do want to emphasize that this building is priority programming for our 60+. So these spaces will be used predominantly for our 60+, but when it's not being used, there will be other opportunities, and that's when recreation will step in. Recreation will also be able to provide the recreational opportunities in the gym. So they would be the ones that would coordinate the pickleball program in the gym, the bocce ball program in the gym, the fencing programs in the gym. They already have all those contacts and those vendors, so they would oversee a lot of those physical elements inside of the gym. So this would be able to provide a central location for recreation programs. Currently, they go all around town to different schools. We pay a fee to the facilities department of around $38,000 to use the schools. So having a central location where we can oversee these programs and know what's going on and have more of that community connection in these programs would be really beneficial. When the center is not being used, again, by the 60+ population, if there's opportunity in the afternoon for after-school programs or adult programs in the evening, that would also be a tremendous asset to our community and to recreation. Right now, the schools, we cannot get into the schools until after 6 p.m., so that is a shortcoming in recreation. Offering dedicated spaces designed for rec programming will include art room, gymnasium, flexible spaces. We are also working on an operations plan, which we hope to have more information in the coming weeks. We met with him today, so we'll be able to give more information on that in the future. So the veteran space, I've talked in depth with Will Valier, our veteran services agent. He's not in a very accessible space in the basement, and neither are the recreation employees and myself. So people don't necessarily, it's not like they don't feel welcome, but it's not a spot that the veterans, if they had a space like this, they would come out more. They would have a lounge to hang out in. They could go to the billiards room, shoot some pool, interact more with our community. In a space like this, we'll be able to get access more to younger veterans and get them the services or benefits that they're entitled to, the mental health services that they may need. So just having our veterans integrated into this space is really huge for him. And he's really hoping that this happens so he can get the services to his veterans that he really needs. So as the video said, the Center for Active Living there's something for everyone. I just want to highlight too, our team has been running several intergenerational events every other month. Last month, we had about almost 100 signups for an Irish step dancing intergenerational event. So our community really has been loving these opportunities, and I love these photos because some of them do provide different elements of that intergenerational aspect, but also other things as well. So you'll see some things listed here on each age group and what could be offered in the building for that particular age group. And then you'll see on this next slide what could be for all members of the community. So these are just access to the walking track and fitness equipment room, drop-in times for gym use, recreational and enrichment programming for all ages, access to our public health and social services resources, opportunity to rent spaces for birthday parties, baby showers, receptions, banquets, a place for community events such as the Friends of Reading Rec Daddy Daughter Dance, an emergency shelter for the town, a voting location for the town, all of these tremendous assets. Let me go back, I'm sorry. And so for all of these other age groups, for the 60 plus, we are, like I said, working on our operational plan, but the priority is our 60 plus population. And you'll see here that we'll have a senior hub space where the 60 plus population can go and hang out and gather, have their programming, have a cup of coffee, have a meetup space. And you'll see, again, priority programming in the rest of the spaces throughout the building. And there will be a policy that the town and states in their operational plan to ensure that this is met. And then obviously when space is available, there'll be organized enrichment and sports programming for all of these age groups. Another interesting program that could happen could be an infant and a toddler class. A lot of grandparents are taking care of their grandkids now during the day. And wouldn't it be wonderful if there was a little music class going on and, you know, grandma could go and take Zumba while little Johnny was doing a music class, or maybe it's a combined music class and grandma could go with little Johnny to the music class. So those are some of the conversations that we've had as a team and some things that we've learned along the way that could be pretty cool from an intergenerational standpoint that wouldn't really drastically impact the flow of the building. So I am going to hand it over to Brian now.
Thank you. I think that might be next.
Okay, so I'm Pat Tompkins. I'm the chair of the Permanent Building Committee. The select board handed this project over to the Permanent Building Committee back in August. We picked up from, as Mark had mentioned, several years of background on the project. Quick, on the right, you can see who the members of the Permanent Building Committee are. All engineers, builders, architects, designers. So we've gone through a process. All of our meetings are open to the public. They're recorded or televised. Let me see. So what we've done since we've got the project, we've hired the OPM. We've gone through a site selection and we've guided through the schematic design. Next slide, please. Is this? Brian? Yeah.
Thanks, Pat. So my name is Brian Ramotka. I'm with Turner and Townsend Heery. We were hired on as the owner's project manager to assist with this project. So we've been working with Pat and the Permanent Building Committee to go through the schematic design process and make sure that Reading is getting a quality facility. And one of the things that we've been focused on is to make sure that the prices are accurate. Not only that you're getting good value for the dollar on the project, but also that you have a good sense on what the costs are in the future, because that's when the project's going to be constructed and the variables that go into that. So as we were going through the design process, we needed to get a better understanding of what the cost would be so that we could set the budget. So we began by looking at the costs that were outlined in the initial feasibility stage. During that time, there was a range in square footage from 26,000 to 28,000 square feet because they were still in the process of working out all the programs and how much space would be required. There was also an estimate that the construction would start in 2025, and there was a $2.6 million contingency that was carried in that initial numbers. And those initial numbers were between 28 and 29 million. So using that as a base, we then kind of updated those numbers to see, well, what are the costs, looking at when construction is going to happen now, making sure that we carry the right amount of contingencies, not just for the design, but also for escalation and owner contingencies, and basing it on the updated square footage. So when we updated those numbers accordingly, the cost was looking to be more around $33 to $34 million. So we had conversations with the Permanent Building Committee and town staff about, where we needed to go for this project. And given the fact that there are other projects going on within the community, the feeling was that we needed to be below $30 million for this project to be feasible for the community. So that was the goal that we were given. Based on that, we looked at a number of other communities to see what are other people paying for their projects. What's a realistic number for this size of a facility and to build it at this time? And we looked at about a dozen different communities and looked at different types of facilities and different impacts to the price. If you can click to the next one. And the thing is, it's very hard to do an apples to apples comparison from project to project because there are so many factors that affect the price. One example is site conditions. How much site improvements need to be made. Some of these projects that we looked at were renovations or renovations additions. Those have a significant difference because a lot of the building is already constructed. Some of them were for senior only facilities. Some of them were for similar shared facilities. Some of them were built prior to COVID and some of them after. So what we tried to do is bring together the projects that were most similar, looking at projects that were constructed after COVID that had a similar size and were also for shared facilities. And based on that, we determined that a probable cost for this project would be about 27 to 34 million based on the comparable projects. So as you can see, we started to develop, a better range of what that might look like. But once again, the direction that we were given was to keep the project below 30 million. So we continued to work with the Permanent Building Committee and with the designer to find out ways to bring this project in under that $30 million mark. And we did that successfully. Our final project budget, if you can click to the next one, was set at $27.9 million. So that was a big success to go from those initial costs that we saw when we made the adjustments, that were trending over $30 million, looking at what other projects cost for other communities, and then to end up not just at $30 million, but actually slightly below that. So how did we do that? If you can click to the next slide. There's a lot of things that can be done both during the design phase and also the construction phase to manage costs. And one of the things that we've been looking at is with the Permanent Building Committee and the working groups within the committee, looking at making cost conscientious design decisions. So we're looking at what kind of return on investment are we going to get for different decisions on the project? What's really needed, making sure that we have the right size facility. We don't want it too small because then you're going to have to add on in the future, but we also don't want to have it too large where you're paying for space that's not needed. And we looked at tightening up the design schedule, which maybe you wouldn't think that it impacts the cost, but it does because inflation continues month after month. And if we can deliver this project somewhat earlier, we're able to save that additional funds. Finally, we wanted to make sure that we were executing responsible financial planning on the project. So we had two different cost estimators look at what the anticipated project cost would be. We reconciled those costs and used that to derive at the estimated construction cost for the project. We also have built-in contingencies that you can see up here on the right. So the contingencies serve a number of different purposes. We have design and pricing contingency, which is set aside to fund the design decisions that have not been made at this point. we're at schematic design level for the design, which is still very early on in the process. There's still hundreds, if not thousands of decisions that need to be made relative to the project. So we have to allow for some contingencies on what those decisions might lead to and what the cost impact would be. The second item is for the inflation contingency. So I've already mentioned the impacts of those. And then we have a construction contingency and owner's contingency. So construction contingency covers the unknown items going into the construction phase. That's after we have bids in on the project, we award the construction contract. But pretty much in every construction project, you run into unforeseen conditions. Maybe there are unsuitable soils that weren't visible, when the initial soil evaluation was done, because they don't test every area. Maybe there are things that are hidden under the ground. I recently had a project where someone had used it as a dumping ground and put all kinds of things under, covered it up nicely. No one knew that they were there until we started to excavate. So we had to dig out all these additional areas. We had to bring in additional soils, and there are costs associated with those things. So that's what the construction contingency costs covers. And then the owner's contingency is for a number of different things. It can be additional costs related to testing that are required, maybe some additional design work that's needed. It might be for some additional programmatic elements that the city decides to add to the project during the construction phase because of new things that come up. So there's a little bit of built-in contingency for that. So we have a detailed project budget that you can see on the left. We put together an estimated cash flow for the project, which helped determine when the borrowing would need to happen. And I just also want to point out that included within this are a number of different things. Jenna mentioned the Stone Dust Trail, but we've also included an upgraded window, which is a triple pane window. We believe that'll be very effective because of the pickleball activities that are going on nearby. We also have a full building generator, which will support the use as an emergency shelter. And there are also some additional improvements to the roadway for Range Road that gives the fire department better access. But what's not included is the pickleball. That is a separate project. So I mentioned we tightened up the design schedule to help save on escalation costs. So the current schedule would require town approval in May. We would then work on completing the design process by the end of the year, going out to bid the beginning of 2026, and then shovels in the ground within the first quarter of next year. And then if we can reach that timeline, we expect to have the building open by the fall of 2027. So that gives you an outline on what the costs are, how we got to that point, and the schedule that we'll need to keep in order to keep those project costs. So I'm going to turn it over to Sharon that's going to talk to you about the tax impacts.
Hi, I'm Sharon Engstrom.
I do have a question. So the 27.9 does not include the contingencies?
It does.
It does.
Yes.
I'm Sharon.
And what about, do you have to reevaluate that in light of tariffs and steel and everything that's going to get more expensive here?
Yeah. So I
Using Brian.
So there are always changes that happen during construction. Some of them are larger than others. And right now with the tariffs, I've looked at what the cost impact would be for steel, and we believe that we can cover that with the existing contingency. But we will have to continue to manage these things all the way through the design process. So one of the things that we'll be doing is as we move forward with the design, we'll be continuing to do cost estimates to make sure that the design is within budget and understand where our costs are to date relative to other market impacts that are happening within the world. So we'll be able to make adjustments if needed also to the design to make sure that we end up under budget when it comes time to bid the project. So we'll be using all of these methods to manage them, but we do have a healthy amount of contingencies to help us through that process. And if we do need to take some cost-cutting measures, we can do that as well. One of the other benefits is that we can use alternates in the bidding process. And that allows us to set aside certain parts of the building that can be funded if the bids come in lower than expected, or allow us to continue to move forward with the construction project if the bids are higher than expected. So we have a number of different ways to manage those costs.
Thank you, Brian. Back to Sharon.
That's, I'm Sharon Engstrom. I'm the CFO and town accountant for Reading. And I'm going to go over the impacts of this project with you. So when we got the numbers about what the project was going to cost, we went to our bonding agent to give us some estimates about what does a 15-year term look like, a 20, a 25, a 30. And obviously, much like when you're borrowing for your home, the shorter the term, the lower the interest rate that we'll get. And the range was pretty close together. So we chose, the treasurer has to select the borrowing options, the terms. So we have to work together on that. In reviewing and analyzing all of that data, we decided that a 15-year term for this project made sense. And it because it provided us with a affordable yearly amount and minimized our interest rate, because the interest, if you spread it out over 30 years, it becomes a huge number. So we determined that for a 15-year borrowing, it will be $265 a year for the average home. And an average home in Reading is about $890,000. We also had projects that were falling off our tax roll this year and the prior year. So last year, we paid our final excluded debt payment on the high school in Wood End. This year, we're making our final debt payment on the library. So those fall off your tax roll because you're only charged debt service on those projects while they're outstanding, and then that goes away. So we estimate the savings of those excluded debts falling off the tax roll at $387 worth of savings to the average taxpayer, again, an $890,000 home. If you consider that, you would be looking at a tax reduction. If this was the only project that we were entertaining, obviously people are aware we're doing Killam as well. You'd be looking at a reduction of $122 on your tax bill if this was the only project you were looking at. This slide shows you a combined impact of both projects. As we're all aware, there is two, Killam and the Recal project. The Killam project was selected for a 20-year borrowing at $734 a year for the average taxpayer. Recal, as we just said, was $265 for a combined total of $999 for the average taxpayer, about $51 a month or $12 a week. When you consider those excluded debt payments falling off, that $387 makes a net $612 a year if you consider both projects and take away the $387. The other thing that's worth mentioning is when we're doing large projects like this, I'm giving the full number when everything is borrowed. But projects, we don't need the money right away. We borrow in tranches, I'd say, as we need the money. So you wouldn't see this hit your tax bill right away. It would be over time that you would see as we borrow the money. It would be probably 1, 2, or 3 borrowings. And it would probably be 2 to 3 years before you see the full impact of these projects hit your tax bill. Matt?
Okay. Next, I believe the next slide. Tax calculator on the website will be coming soon. So you can go on and try to figure out what this means for your own tax bill. And that'll be on our website. Okay, so again, Matt Cornelis, I kicked it off. I'm going to wrap it up. Did you have a question?
Before we leave this topic.
Yep.
Sharon, could you share what is the interest rate for the 20-year borrowings?
Let's see. I brought them all with me.
But only because it wasn't legible on the screen.
Oh, yes. So for the 15, we're looking at an estimated rate. Now, this is estimated at this time, interest rates change. The 15-year borrowing was a 3% rate. The 20-year was 3.25% for coupon rate, 25 at 3.5%, and I believe the 30 was at 3.75%.
really close.
Okay, thank you, Sharon. Again, Matt Cornelis, Town Manager. I'm going to wrap things up pretty quickly and then we'll go to your questions, like I had mentioned at the beginning, which is the real important part of the meeting in hearing tonight. So if you look, I'm going to talk a little bit about approvals. So if you look at what's in the green under approvals, some approvals have already happened. PBC, that stands for Permanent Building Committee. They had a vote of approval back in February. The select board voiced their support for the project earlier this month. And the finance committee got a good update on the project again earlier this month on March 5th. What's coming up next week, the select board is going to vote. They're going to vote on the warrant articles and I think also a separate vote on both to support both the Killam and the Recal project. So there's 2 agenda items on that. Coming up after that, the very next night, the Finance Committee will vote on the warrant articles regarding both Killam and Recal to send those to town meeting. What we're going to do this year is a little bit different. We're going to have a special town meeting within the town meeting. And there's some legal reasons and timing reasons for doing that. But the key dates to remember is May 1st. That'll be the special town meeting. It's within the town meeting. So it'll be just a night dedicated to both projects, Recalc and Killam that night. And then if those both pass town meeting, we will have a special town vote. That's an election on May 13th. And it will be decided at that point if this project will go forward. So that's basically the outline of approvals. You know, we wanted to get a lot of approvals, get everybody on board, and also have a lot of these public forums so that we could get your opinions on things. So the next slide, if I can go, as I said, public forums. This, I believe, is the 3rd public forum we had on this particular project. We had one in December, one in January. We also had a lunch and learn that was part of the one in January. And here we are in March at our 3rd public forum tonight. And then as an offshoot of that, on March 27th, which I believe is Thursday, we're also going to have a coffee and chat public forum. I believe that's at Town Hall itself. To talk more about the project. And that's for people, anybody's welcome to come to that, but also people that just couldn't make a night meeting, that it's better to come during the day. They have questions. That'll be your time to come and talk to all of us. We'll all be there again with the same information. And then the other thing we are doing leading up to town meeting is on April 2nd, we are going to have a public forum discussing both the Killam project and the Recalc project as a lead up to town meeting that will be coming later that month. And that is going to be at the PAC, which is the Performing Arts Center at the high school. So we'll be able to accommodate much more people there. And we're going to have a follow up to that on the 16th of April, which will be a Zoom only forum. Again, the same sort of a repeat of what went on the 2nd, but we want to have the opportunity for people that weren't able to come physically to be able to participate on Zoom. So lots of public input, public feedback, and we're still gathering it, as you can see. So the next slide, which I think may be my last slide, we talk about public engagement. We've tried to engage the public, not just by having these forums, but we've asked for input. We have an email address. People can email us still. There's a few boxes at Town Hall where they can physically write their questions and concerns on paper and leave it for us there. We have a website, as part of the town website. Also, the video you saw tonight, and the local media has been gracious enough to cover this in great detail. We have flyers, we have newsletters, updates, town news flashes. So there's been a lot of ways to communicate with us, and I hope we've communicated with you in an effectual way. And that continues. Like I said, we're going straight on to May 13th when this will ultimately be decided. So we still have some time to collect your input and talk to you about it. So I think that was my last slide, our last slide. Next would be the questions and answers. So any questions that you would have tonight, if you can come up, I believe we have a second microphone over at the podium. So maybe if you could get Chris's attention and he could direct you up to the podium and we'll keep our microphone up here and answer for ever long as you like. So. Yes, but just come on up as you can.
Hi, Ray Porter on Franklin Street, also Commissioner on the Reading Municipal Light District. Not necessarily speaking for the general manager, but he certainly expressed support for whatever projects the town's doing, particularly in terms of electrification. I know cost is a critical factor. It certainly was for the Killam School Committee. After evaluating both the capital and the life cycle cost, the Killam School Committee decided to build an all-electric project and include solar panels on the roof structure to offset the cost behind the meter, reducing the total electric bill that would be part of the continuing cost of the community would pay for the project. Looking at all options, that they covered a pretty extensive process of looking at all the different possible ways to support the project. They felt that that was a combined ground source, air source, and solar project was the most cost effective to go. So encourage all of that, but whatever you decide to do, certainly the RMLD will be there to support that project. The implications of doing solar later under RMLD have different cost implications than if you do it up front. And that was one of the things the Killam School evaluated. So my offer is, be glad to work with the design team, the engineering team. We'd be glad, we met with the team for the Killam School. Give some input on terms of solar panel size, costs, benefits, credits that were due to feed into whatever cost analysis is done. But certainly we support an all electric with solar project for this. Because it brought the best value to the town. And would want that value to be brought to this project also.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, I'm going to turn that over to Brian. So.
Thank you. I appreciate the comments. And I just wanted to point out that for the ReCal project, we recently had a meeting with RMLD. I think it was this week or last week. And we're going through that similar process. BH+A has outlined some potential areas for solar on the roof. So we're going through the evaluations to see how, the cost effectiveness of that solution. So good points.
Just to add on to that a little bit, it is an all electric building. And one of the first things, we get past the vote and we get into design development, one of the first things the designers are going to do is go through that life cycle cost analysis. And we'll definitely make sure we include you when we're in that process. Thank you. And thank you for the offer.
Hi, Anne Marie Bork, Haverhill Street, here in Reading. Pretty close to where all this construction is going to be happening, actually. One of my concerns is that in our goal to have a larger and better senior community space, that it will be chewed up by a community space. So I would love to be sure that there would be dedicated space for the seniors, and that it's not a giant community center that the seniors get to use during certain periods of time. So can we be assured that I hear from seniors in the community, because I'm talking about this a lot, because I think that this is a huge project that we really need to go forward with and looks at our future. We look at the future of the children. I'm looking at the future of people like myself in the fourth quarter. And I'd like to know that there's dedicated space. Chris, you've done a great job past couple of years. You really have. Be great to be able to grow on that. So Jenna, when you mentioned about a policy, is that what you're talking about? Will there be dedicated space for seniors?
Yes, so we are actively working on a plan right now in our operations plan. I've also been visiting other centers and speaking extensively with other centers who are just like ReCal. And everyone does it differently. There's Randolph, who has designated 60+ hours from 9 to 2:30. And then it opens up to the community as a whole afterward. There's models, more often than not, that have this hybrid building, that the building operates very organically. So you would assume that the 60+ majority of the programs will happen during the day. However, we do have a preliminary program schedule for the future that we came up with as staff. And there's an additional 50+ programs on this spreadsheet that we will share when it's ready, that has 60+ programs, not only throughout the day, but in the evening, in the afternoon. But we don't have a crystal ball. We don't know if we can assume that the 60+ will not be maximizing every single space, every single hour of every single day. So what we're saying is, while 60+ is the priority, there will be opportunities and space available for other members of our community. And when there is, that's when recreation will step in and offer these programs. That's when Will be able to utilize this space for his events, and with Scuttlebutt. We also operate like that right now at the center. Recreation is in here after hours when 60+ is not. And same thing with the veterans. Veterans is here once a month during the day. Chris, gives a spot to them. So there's going to be a senior hub where there'll be designated spaces for our 60+ population, but there's also the whole entire building that will be priority 60+ programming. So you can assume that, during the day, when all of the kids are in school and all of these other things are going on in our community, that the majority of the programs will be for our 60+ population. And that is a guarantee that I can definitely say that I am prioritizing, and that I have always prioritized, and that Chris has prioritized, and Jane and Matt and Recalc and so many other folks, and Council on Aging. There's been extensive conversations on prioritizing this community. And I think that we can successfully do that. And to your point about the policy, that's why we're going to create this policy. That's something concrete, because we've heard, well, Jenna, what if you're gone? What if Chris is gone? What if Jim's gone? Because we all work so well together, and we know that we're going to prioritize this community. But what happens when we're gone? We don't want, the 60+ population wants this space for, their needs and this growing population. So this policy will protect that. And we're hoping to share that in the coming weeks with the community and the Permanent Building Committee. And we do have, if this does pass, we do have 2 years to really solidify something really great. And I'm confident that we can do that. And Chris, if you have anything else to add.
No, I think Jenna said it well. I know I know everyone has said, we're looking for priority for 60+. So we have the senior hub. And we're going to continue to look after older adults in the town and the community. The goal is to reach more folks as well. Right now we reach about 2,000 older adults through the Pleasant Street Center. And what's nice is, having more space. It'd be nice to be able to reach more of the just under 7,800 older adults in town. So, but again, I think Jenna stated it very well. We're priority is 60+. We have the senior hub. And I know I've said this in the past, it is a large building. We want to make sure we utilize it to its fullest potential. If you have a building like this that the town approves and we get you know, we want to make sure it's filled and people are using it to its fullest capacity.
We don't have a slide of the senior hub here. There is a floor plan somewhere in here. And afterward, we can show you the spaces that we've discussed as being the senior hub. But again, nothing has been super solidified. Everything is a work in progress, so to speak. And the senior hub again is, I don't want that to be quantified as, oh, this is the percentage that the 60 plus is getting. They're going to get the game room and the cafe and that's it. That's not the case. There will be 60 plus programming in this entire building all day. And we can guarantee that. But we have to ease our way in. We have to see what is popular, what people will sign up for. We know how popular things have been in this population through Elder and Human Services and recreation. So recreation, just pickleball alone, you can have pickleball every day in the gym from 9 to 12, drop in, and that gym will be packed. So we will be, recreation's in there as not just for a whole community aspect to offer those intergenerational and other programming opportunities if space allows it, but also to help the 60 plus programming inside the gym.
Just a quick thing to add to that. When you look at the floor plans and you look at the senior hub, just to add on to what Jenna said, that's not the limitations of this programming for the 60 plus community. The entire building, pretty much every square inch of this building will have programming for the 60 plus community. The senior hub will be dedicated for the 60 plus community. But again, every square inch will have programming, so.
And we're looking forward to that programming. There's a lot of things that we can't do in this building that I look forward to doing. And it's nice to have the support of, you know, Jane and Matt and Jenna. But there are things that we can really do, and this gives us that opportunity. We can do, you know, robotics, makerspace. I've said this before, I think at the last select board meeting, you know, we have a lot of talented people in this town. And it would be great to have them part of this building, to be able to provide their skills. We have a lot of engineers, we have a lot of professors, we have such talented people in this town. And we can tap into programming and grow a senior and, you know, the recount building into something amazing. And I don't see why you wouldn't tap into those skills. You know, we have a business professor. You know what? Let's do business classes. You know, we have so many engineers. Let's tap into the older adults that are engineers so they can teach their skills. You know, there's so many things that we're just not tapping right now that this building will allow us to do. And, you know, I know myself, as you know, I run the Pleasant Street Center, I want to tap those skills. But, you know, we have talented people. I want to get Matt and I will get Jane to teach a class on government, you know? That would be a great class. We have Pat Tompkins right here. Construction, you know, not only, you know, we can tap the older adults for that, but also, even if it's in the evening after they get off work, I'm gonna tap in to do a construction class, intergenerational construction class. You know, Legos, you know, Legos, I do Lego robotics at the North Reading, do that here. So, you know, just don't think of a senior center. We're prioritizing 60 plus. But think about the untapped potential that we have with this building and what we can do with it. And it's amazing the talent that we have in this community that we can. We'll go over here, and then Nancy, you'll be sorry.
So you mentioned that this building was gonna be an emergency shelter. You'd also discussed that this was gonna be fully electric, so how did those two things jive? I believe at a previous select board meeting, they discussed using propane with the building, so. That's two things.
Um,
Oh, sorry, Taylor Gregory, Pleasant Street.
So the building is currently designed and within the budget and the scope to be a shelter in place. It's a fully electric building. There is a generator that would kick in. There's no natural gas. There's no gas down, I guess, Simon's Way, Range Road. So it will either be a diesel, most likely a diesel generator that would only kick on in an emergency. So other than the diesel generator, it is an electric building. But between the commercial kitchen that's in the building and the generator, in the current budget right now, in the current scope is a shelter in place building.
I just want to follow up on that. Diesel generators require operation period weekly or monthly in order to maintain operations. So to say it would only run in emergencies is not true. There are maybe other ways we can get emergency power to the site that would still allow it to be a shelter in place. Because we have several projects going on in the area with solar, there could be battery backup systems on Reading needs land area to put solar cells in the area. I think we could be more creative on that. That's where I welcome some discussion on looking at the area even more broadly than simply the Killen School and the Recalc building. If we look at generating power across this entire area, we could find it be a way to be able to provide reliable power, which is Reading's commitment to the community, and not have to go to a diesel type generator. They don't only operate in emergencies. They have to be serviced regularly and they're costly to operate as well as to buy. So that's what you got now. I hear you. Let's have some conversations on how we can provide backup power in case of emergencies.
Thank you. I do understand it'll be operating, testing once a week, once a month. And we look forward to, we're through schematic design. We haven't gone through full design development, and we look forward to, anyone in the community as well as yourself offering some different options that we can explore.
Nancy?
Hi, Mike, I think you can all hear me. Well, also for the folks that. My name is Nancy Zemlat. I'm a member of the Council on Aging, former chair. I'd like to introduce Karen Janowski, who is the current chair of the Council on Aging. I've been involved in this project since Recalc was formed. And I just want to, going back to Anne Marie's question, that the Council on Aging has been collaborating with this group for the past, I don't know, where are we now, 4 years?
Yes.
4 years. And our priority, of course, is the 60 plus population. So I just want everybody to know that you have a voice in this whole process and that you're more than welcome to contact the Council on Aging. But Recalc also has this wonderful website with an opportunity to put your input in via email, and those are all collected. And frequently asked questions are generated, but we are kind of the watchdog for the 60 plus, because you're moving from this building to another building. That's a big move. And it's really important that everybody feels at home. And we're doing our best to make that happen. And we know it will.
Any other questions?
There's one on Zoom, right?
David Z, Sanborn Street. And I'd like to hear what the story is going to be on food service. You know, we talk about 2,000 people, I guess. 2,000 people is a lot of lunches, right? So I'm not sure how many people you think are going to go to Simon's Way. I'm really curious I don't see a plan for attracting people. In fact, I think it would be a big effort here to get the people from this location to move out there, because there's also no transportation plan. But first off, what is the food service? I mean, if you're at the center and you're here for an event in the morning and maybe one in the afternoon, there's no problem. You know, you can have a sandwich, you can have a $200 gourmet meal, you know, but I don't know what you do at Sanborn. I mean, out on Simon's Way, it's a long walk, you know, back to food. So what are you going to do for daily food service? And is it going to be, you know, like, you know, something you can order, or are you going to serve up meals, or what are you going to do? And how many are you planning to serve?
I know there's a commercial kitchen plan for the site. That's about the extent of what I know about food service. Does anybody else on the team want to speak to this?
I mean, I guess that would kind of come to me in a way. So, you know, first of all, we're going to carry over what we do, a lot of what we do here over there. So right now we do community lunch on Mondays. We will continue that. Then usually throughout the week, we have other lunches. Now we have tied them to programming. You know, so usually there's somewhere between 2 or 3 lunches per week now here at the Pleasant Street Center. You know, and anyone can sign up for it. It's nice though, you know, the one is just community lunch. You can come have lunch, chat, and enjoy yourself. We will probably increase that, at least maybe to a 2. But then we will continue to keep lunch with a programming. It's nice to be able to offer, you know, have a lunch, but tie it to a program as well. We do lunch and learns at least once a month. We have movie and a pizza once a month. So we usually have multiple programs that serve a meal at the same time. We will continue the community meals as well. On top of that, I know we've been looking at transportation. You know, we're very fortunate right now that our medical transportation is taken care of through alternative transportation, through a different service, and that's really great. That's a huge asset to the older adult community here in town and the Pleasant Street Center, and that'll carry over for medical transportation. We will continue to do that. On top of that, you know, we have 2 buses. You know, we have one that runs regularly, do shopping trips, even to the center here. Now, right now, the majority of the people that come to the Pleasant Street Center, they drive, which is great. And I understand that that can shift at any time, you know, but we are well aware. Someone can call up. I know in our pleasantries, we say, you know, we prefer to have 48-hour notice for transportation so we can schedule it. But even now, if someone calls usually in the morning at 8 o'clock, we can usually get them on a bus. We can get them to the shopping trip if we need to, or we can get them to the center here for programming. You know, and we will continue to offer that service. And if we need to, we have that second van to put on the road when we need it. We have 4 drivers, we have a full-time transportation coordinator, then we have 4 backup drivers, and I'm also a backup driver as well. So, which comes in really handy, because if our drivers are out for something, I know I'm always here, and I have jumped in the van and always grabbed somebody. Friday morning, this coming Friday, I have, I'm gonna pick someone up to get them here to the center so they can exercise. You know, and then our other part-time driver who has to take his grandkids to school will be in to finish up the transportation. So on top of those 2 vans, we've also been exploring different options and looking at other transportation options in other cities and what they do. We have a little time on this, which is nice, so we can assess the situations and see what best program to use. You know, so rest assured, we are looking at transportation on top, just in case we know there's various programs and things out there to make sure people can get to the center and back home as we continue to do our shopping trips and our medical transportation and everything else.
How many people do you expect to be in this center on a daily basis? I mean, that you would have to be, that there would be whatever mix of programs you have. How many people do you expect to be in that center? How many seniors? 60.
Seniors, I think it's going to increase quite a bit.
And what's the number?
That's a good, so usually we can, I have no doubt. Sorry, I have to think about that really quickly, really fast. So,
Yes, so just to step back just a minute, we did have another question that was kind of directly related to this. Someone emailed Recal and said, hey, I couldn't unmute myself, so I had answered back, but then they logged off. So the question is, the view from some of the presenters seems to rely on an optimistic view that more seniors and other groups will utilize the facility and services. This is putting a big bet on taxpayer money. I'm senior. I know seniors in town and none of them use a senior center. What percentage of the town's senior participated in that 1472 respondent poll shown tonight? Let's see, kind of the same. So basically they wanted to know how many current seniors use the center and what can we expect? Well, we do know that. Not exactly, but we know from neighboring communities that we've talked to and the data that they've collected that they are going to share with us, which is really great in their testimonials. There's some testimonials online right now from the other centers that have been built recently in Pembroke, in Sandwich, Salem, Lexington, just to name a few. Some testimonials on how impactful this building has been made in their community. So there was a projection that they received up to 110% increase in participation throughout their community. So currently there's 2,000 unduplicated seniors that come to our senior center right now. There's a population of 7,887. But if you walk around this building, you'll notice that really you can only program comfortably maybe 3 of these rooms. The billiards room downstairs, the pool sticks hit the table. The computer room is extremely small. One of the rooms upstairs is half office spaces. So again, we're very limited on what we can do here. So if we had the space, I could wager that there would be a lot more folks coming to this building. And there are wait lists in several of our larger programs. So with that being said, again, we did go over a lot of these statistics in our last meeting and had some of that data on the number of folks that we would serve in our community. So I encourage people to go back and look at that.
Yeah, I've seen several of these presentations. I've never seen that. I've never seen how many people are actually in this building on a given day and how many people you expect to be at the Simon's Way building.
so I do average, okay. So the number on average fluctuates depending on the programming that we're doing each day. Usually like on Mondays are our busiest days. So just to run you through like an average Monday, Best Exercise has about 33, averaging about 33 people at 9 o'clock. We switch over at 10 o'clock for bingo, which is holding about 40 to 45 people from 10:30 to 11:30. Right after that, we get ready for lunch at that time, which has about an average of 50 people. Right after that, we tear down so we can get ready for Zumba down here in the afternoon, which is averaging somewhere around 25 people. At the same time, upstairs on a Monday, we have cribbage going upstairs, which is getting about 10 to 12 people, I think, lately in the afternoon. And that takes care of some of the rooms upstairs while Zumba's going on down here. And then in the morning, we have yoga. I had to remember which one. We have yoga upstairs, which is pushing about 25 people and overflowing into the offices of 2 of my staff upstairs. So that gives you a breakdown. Right now, we're averaging about 3,100 interactions per month And we're getting close to about 38,000 interactions per year. Now, that does not include emails. It doesn't include phone calls coming in, which is about 900 phone calls per month going to my front desk person. So that kind of gives you an idea of what we're dealing with a
And the
small
wait list.
facility. On top of that, you are correct. We have the wait lists here. So we can only, I try hard not to go over 60 people in this room. Right now, we don't have, you can see how busy it is with the people in this room right now, which I think is a lot less than 60. I only do 60 in this room for safety protocol. I gotta make sure people can get out of this room, and I understand that I could increase it, but that's not safe because you have walkers, I could potentially have wheelchairs, and I gotta make sure people can get out. So we have to cap it at 60. 55 is a little bit more comfortable. So with our big events, we have about 30 people on the wait list. Because after about 25 people, they just stop calling. A few more will call and they're like, I just can't get in. Our programs are filling up in about our both large events, once we put it out there, fill up in about 3 hours. On average, 2.5 is our big events here at this facility. If I had to guess, if we move into the other building, it'll probably double on that. Because I can do that every day. Because, you know, I have art class on Tuesdays, you know, I get about 12 or 15 in this room because they need space to be able to do their art. So that brings my numbers down a little bit because of what I have to deal with in this space. Because I have to spread art class out for the morning and they do about 2 hours. And that really reduces my number there. So, you know, in the new building, if we have a dedicated art space where we can do art, that means I can also run a class with at least 30 in the smaller program rooms. And if we need to run something about 40 in the gym. You gotta be careful because, you know, just again, safety protocols in a big class, you know, it's up to the instructor. Some instructors will cap it. My previous experience with, where I was at health and wellness. And I cap my classes, only for safety. You know, so that kind of gives you an idea of the numbers. And I have no doubt, you know, at sometimes we have maximized this space. So we have a program going down here, we'll have billiards going downstairs here. And then upstairs, we've had a presentation in both of the kitchen and the lounge upstairs. So we have numerous times run 4 programs at once. But again, the numbers fluctuate a little bit, but by looking at the numbers and looking at our programs, the need is there. And I have no doubt that that number would increase. So a good idea, what I've calculated is right now we do about 38,000 interactions per month. I'm assuming that number will go to about 60 fairly easily, you know, once we have the more space. And I calculate that numbers by talking to other directors at other larger facilities. You know, and seeing what, you know, what they have done, what has happened with their numbers as they have gotten more space.
And just to add to that, because Brian was chiming in my ear and he's like, what about this? And I was like, oh, right. So in a lot of these ReCal centers, the hybrid model centers, there is a significant increase in the younger 60 plus population, as well as a 60 plus population in general for other ages. And that is because there is a stigma associated with going to a senior center, unfortunately. There's some folks who in our community will not go to a senior center, but they would go to a building like ReCal. And my parents are 2 of them. And I know that there's several people in this room who I've talked to that that feel the same. But there are members of our community who come here now and love it and want to be with their friends and want to have that designated senior hub. And so we're really looking forward to creating a building that really makes everyone happy. And I hope that we can get close to doing that. It's probably going to be impossible, but I think that we're going to get pretty close with the team here. And I did find the slide. with some stats. So again, please look at the operations plan, but we have over 9,000 individuals and families participating in community programs and events and utilizing vital social services and resources offered within the Community Services Department. Other centers have seen a 70 to 110% increase in participation when opening their new facilities. This translates into 58 to 72% of the total population of Reading who will use the building or access community resources. So pretty powerful numbers.
Yes, I'm not sure if this. You can hear it, okay, sometimes you can if it's not directional. I'm Kendra Cooper, I represent precinct 8. I think the elephant in the room that no one really talks about is this location adjoining the Reading Rifle and Gun Club. It's been there since the 1920s. And it's very loud. I mean, you think pickleball is loud. That is loud. I'm very concerned. I know that the architect said they're gonna have triple glaze or whatever for windows. That's not gonna be great if you're walking on that trail. The walking trails around the outside. It is swampy around there. I've always felt if you're talking intergenerational, you really should be looking at the high school site. And I know when I was shocked to hear that no one thought that was a good place. However, it took me a few months to get the letters. They were basically emails. And that means that people who provide input are people who email. There are a lot of older people who do not email, who are not online. These people, even with the surveys, and I have dealt with the elder population for many years. My grandmother was 80 when I was born. So I'm saying that all my life, I've had people of multiple generations involved, and I'm really concerned about the guns. And it's not just that I have a phobia of guns. I don't have a phobia of guns, but I am really concerned about this location. I was listening to the meeting that it was the finance committee meeting, I think, and someone mentioned the soil, and they were actually talking about the pickleball courts and how they're going to need to have reinforced steel and this isn't, it's a separate project, but it's not in that it's that area of town. Because of the soil composition that's there. Now, that used to be a missile site, and I know that they've said, well, we've tested it for poisons and chemicals, so that's not an issue. Well, you never know, as someone here said, when once you start building, then you begin to realize what the soil composition is, more so. And if you're going to need that for the pickleball courts, that's another consideration for the basement or the foundation for this building, this structure. I was recently at the Wilmington Center, which has only been open a month now. It's a beautiful structure, and I do feel we need to have, we need a bigger facility. And there were some wonderful things that happened. There's a range of things. But I'm very concerned about building it off Range Road. And I find it curious that this project has been called Simon's Way, but it really, the location is off of Range Road. And it's Range Road because the firing range outdoors, this is not an indoor one, outdoors is right adjoining it. So, I mean, I think if anyone goes to St. Athanasius Church sometimes, you can hear it. But I urge you to actually go up there because it's extremely loud at the end of that street. And I don't think, as much as it looks on paper like a good location, I don't think it is. I understand too that people up near the Oakland Road site have been concerned about traffic. That seems to be the gist of their objections to this site, the site up there. But if you truly want
multi-generational programming and things. That would not involve the tremendous amount of transportation issues to bring children there, bring older people there. Transportation is a serious problem. Maintenance of the building could be a serious problem too. We've had different projects. One of the points that I feel with Killam and the Killam project, if it goes as it's being projected, Killam would end up bringing children from that are presently at the high school, the RISE program and some of the preschool. They would then be at the Killam School. Killam School has long needed to be renovated or replaced. It took 20 years at least. So, I think that has potential to be a very good project. That also means that they won't have the kind of traffic they have now at the high school because they won't be, the RISE program and the younger kids are brought there. And there's more traffic that way. So I suspect that it would be, we haven't had traffic studies done. So we don't really know. I'm not aware of, were there any traffic studies done for the Oakland Road? For the Oakland Road project, or we never got that far, because that seems to be. That's. What? But the traffic study is about a senior center at Oakland Road.
Oh, no, because that wasn't the designated location. We did have several public meetings. We did have several public meetings about Oakland Road. And one was with the abutters. And they cited existing issues with kids speeding up and down the road, past projects that they've been very concerned about with the ledge up there. So when this decision was made, there was a lot of considerations, and one was the abutters and that existing area. Another thing that came up with that area is the extensive amount of ledge. And there's no opportunity for outdoor pickleball being so close to neighbors or creating that
Pickleball
cohesiveness
could be
over there.
right next to the firing range.
Yeah.
To me, yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So there was a very
extensive.
extensive rating scale that
When I read the letters, there were several of them. They were very organized up at Oakland Road area anyway, because they had just had the replacement of the water tower. And some people did encounter issues with that. However, when you look at the larger picture and the future of elders and people 50 and 60 and all, and if you want multi-generational, to be where the three schools are plus the Y and plus that space, if you see, I've been up there and seen the terrain, and I don't think that would be a great location for a pickleball court just because it's uneven and things, but that corner, that would be so much easier to have multi-generational, programming. And Woodford High School, there are, there are many things that I'm aware of veterans, PTSD. I can't imagine people that they would want to go to a senior center that is that close to fire. There's, I don't think that that's been considered very well. And in fact, I rarely, rarely even say it's Range Road, but it is Range Road, and it's that because of firing range.
So first of all, thank you for bringing that up. One of the things you got to remember, no matter what, when you pick a site, no site is perfect. So everyone's looked at, there are multiple different committees, as we mentioned, Recalc, the project architect, the project OPM, the Council on Aging had all looked at the multiple sites, and they had all selected Simon's Way as the best potential site. When the project came to the Permanent Building Committee, we took the ratings, the scale, the matrix that they used. We took it, we tore it apart. We didn't think it suited how we wanted to look at it. We look at it very much from an engineering standpoint, try to take everything into consideration. We had a detailed, lot of detailed discussions. John Coote can attest to that, some heated discussions about it. We went through a very objective process to come up with what would be the most beneficial site, and Simon's Way came out on top. Every site is gonna have some issues. There's no perfect site. And here in Reading, there's not a lot of options. As far as the costs, there will be subsurface foundations in this building. It's included in the budget. There's been testing for contaminants on site that have come back clean. You never know what you're gonna get, and you don't know what you're gonna get at Oakland Road. I make my living building public buildings. If you want to pick one site from a purely site cost standpoint, I think Oakland Road would end up costing the town more with the ledge removal, et cetera. I'm confident that that's the case, but you don't know until you put a shovel in the ground. But we went through a long, detailed, objective process to get to Simon's Way. And we feel confident that it's the best of the options available. We completely understand the concerns, the thoughts. One thing we do have going for us between we do have the triple pane windows on the building, and hopefully we'll have pickleball in between the senior center and the firing range. So, anyone else?
Anyone else? Come on up.
Hello, Jonathan Weber, 84 Hartshorn Street. First of all, thank you. I think what you're doing here is awesome. Couple of questions. One, grant money was mentioned. What's attached to the grant money? Are there any stipulations, any requirements of the town, anything that we have to do, provide going forward for accepting the grant money?
The current budget and scope for this project does not include any reliance on grant money. I think the reference to grant money was the MSBA money for the Killam project. So,
Okay.
correct me if I'm wrong.
That's,
Or there also was, to do the feasibility study, we had some ARPA funds that we used. The stipulation at this point was you have to spend them by a certain point in time. We've accomplished that. But we did all of that work using those ARPA funds, not town funds. And that's the extent of it.
okay, excellent. You mentioned the amount of increase on the tax bill, but you did not mention the average tax bill for an individual in Reading. I think that would be nice to provide that to the public to see what that would be. The last thing, get out of your way. The question of Birch Meadow, and not to come back at the individual who was just speaking, who I think made a lot of really good points. Birch Meadow is full. It's full. Full of kids, full of cars, full of traffic. It is full. And the last thing you want to do is put a senior center in the middle of Oakland Road, which is a glorified parking lot, folks. It's a glorified parking lot with a whole bunch of brand new drivers. So the odds of something happening are pretty high. So that was the only thing I wanted to point out. I know that it's come up. The last thing I will tell you is, as far as PTSD, I understand that's a legitimate concern for individuals who have been involved with that. I can tell you, the 13-year-olds that play right field takes 2 games and they stop turning around and looking over their shoulder. The first game's kind of fun, just to let you know. It was always one of those things when you coach and you're like, watch this. And you see the kid in right field go. But after the second game, it blends right in. It just becomes background noise. So those are my questions. Those are my concerns. You're all lucky that my wife is out of town and I was able to jump in a car and come down here because she would have killed me and told me not to come down.
Thank you for coming down.
That being said, I sent an email. You can ignore it.
Oh, was Selectman Tedesco on the email?
Oh, no.
No, oh,
It's Weber, just like,
because I did get an email from a John Tedesco.
Mayor John Webb.
Yes.
All right.
So, that's all I got. Thank you very much for hearing me out. Was there any answer to?
I was just gonna give you the answer for the average tax bill. The average tax bill is for an $890,000 home. At $11.39 is $10,137 a year.
So between the two projects, you're looking at adding another 10% to individuals' tax bills on average.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well,
I
net of
understand some things
net
are
of
falling off.
the exemptions fall, the excluded debt falling off, it's less, but roughly the projects are about $1,000 between the two of them without the exemptions falling off. So I see where you get the 10%.
Okay, thank you very much. Appreciate your time. And I really appreciate what you're doing. I think it's a great idea, the location you picked. And I think that this facility just is not able to support what we're looking to do. So thank you very much.
Thanks, John. Just one quick comment if I could. So the tax calculator that Matt mentioned in the beginning. So one of the things you'll be able to do is put in, I'm hearing myself, is to put in the value of your property and see what the impacts would look like specifically. So you might have an average home, you might have a less than average home in terms of assessment, you might have a higher one. But this way you can see what the impacts are going to be.
Okay, any more questions? I think we're about to wrap up. Were there any questions on Zoom, Jenna, that we didn't get to? No? Okay, okay. All right, if there's no more questions, I'd like to thank everybody for coming to our third forum. Again, on Thursday morning at Town Hall, there'll be another coffee, a little more informal forum. If you have more questions or you have friends that couldn't make it tonight, please spread the word. Check out the website. There's lots of ways to find out about this very important project. So thank you very much. Oh, and if boards have to adjourn, they should do so now.
Thanks.
Any other select board members still on Zoom?
Yeah.
I'm on Mark.
Okay, so we're already out.
See you later.
Mark, can I get a motion to adjourn the? John Coop? Mark Doxa? Nancy Zimlock? Nancy? Pat Tompkins, yes. We're adjourning the committee.
Sorry, kinds of stuff that's been happening. Yes.